Hey guys, Christian from Shotstepper Films back here again with another video today. I just want to apologize really quick. There's going to be a lot of noise going on. I'm very sorry about that. I'm doing my best to work around it. But anyways, today we're going to be looking at the C100 Mark II. But before we get into that, be sure to check out all of our links down in the description to our Facebook, Twitter, and our very own website with all of our blog posts, tutorials, short films, everything posted right there for you, all Shotstepper Films. And while you're at it, also be sure to hit subscribe and the bell notification down below so you can stay updated on future uploads just like this one, as well as our budget tips and techniques and our very own short films. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into the review today. So today is not going to be like a super technical review. It's just going to kind of be looking over the key features of the C100 Mark II and, you know, things that are good about it, things that are bad about it. That's just all I'm going to be covering today to see if maybe this camera is good for your budget. So, as I always do with my tech reviews, we will go ahead and go through the specifications of the Canon C100 Mark II first, just so we can get kind of a baseline as to what this camera can do. To start off with, it shoots at 4K, but before going into the card, down-res to 1080p format. You get a sharp image at 24 megabits per second. You have the option to shoot at 24, 30, and 60 FPS. It also has dual pixel CMOS autofocus, face detection, dual SD card slots, a viewfinder, a rotatable OLED monitor, Canon EFS lens mount so you can mount on your EFS lenses. I believe it's like 15 different assignable buttons all around the body. Also has really good low light sensitivity, Canon log profile, high dynamic range. It has timecode supported HDMI, built-in Wi-Fi, up to 3 hours of recording time per 32 gigabytes of storage space. Very modular design with a top handle and a side grip. It's also built-in ND filters at 2, 4, and 6 stops of ND. You also get the standard battery, lasts about 3 to 4 hours. And you've also got a headphone and a microphone out port, as well as XLR ports in the top handle, as well as a preamp in the top handle. You also get a built-in scratch mic on the body itself. And overall, just looking at those specifications alone, I think this camera is honestly worth the money that it costs, which for me costs about $3,000, but if you're going with the US model, it's about $3,500. So anyways, let's go ahead and get into the actual review today, starting off with the cons of this product. No doubt this thing has a big body as it is a cinema camera. It is intended to have everything inside of it that you need. A big enough package to be able to deliver the amount of quality that you're looking for. It's no red camera, but it's also not a mirrorless camera either. It's not just something you're going to be casually walking down the streets with all day long like a vlogging camera. This is a very specific camera for getting very specific things. Like right now, I'm using it to shoot YouTube videos. I use it to shoot short films because it produces such high quality, but it's like they're very specific things. It's not like I'm just, once again, walking down the street just shooting random stuff with this. I'd be more likely to take my Canon Rebel T5i out for that. And the modular build, once it's all assembled, is just awkwardly shaped. To be able to store this thing, I have to take apart all of the pieces individually, which wouldn't be so bad other than the fact that it just feels like it takes a lot of time to do, because you gotta unscrew the side grip, pull out the cable, screw the cap back on, pull out the cable for the top handle, unscrew the top handle, take it off, put it all away nice and neatly, and it just feels like it takes that much more time. Same for setting up, because you got to put it all together, and it just feels like it takes a lot of time for me. So, I mean, just with the way that the build is, it's really awkward to set it in a case. Even my Pelican 1650, I can't put it in all together. And this camera has no touchscreen. I've just become really used to that with Canon. Because my first Canon camera was the Vixia HFG20, which is almost entirely touchscreen. There's very few actual buttons on the camcorder itself. And then I upgraded to the Canon Rebel T5i, which did have a few more manual buttons, but for the most part, you can still do everything touchscreen. Going to this was way different. There is no touchscreen anywhere on it. It is just a little joystick that you move around with your thumb. Like, that's all it is. You get one on the screen, and if you've got the side grip attached, there's one on that too. The Wi-Fi in this thing is really difficult to use. There are several occasions where I really want to use it. Like right now, I wish that I could just pull out my phone, be able to hit the record button right here, or at least be able to see what my camera is seeing. But I can't do that because it's just so difficult to set up. I have not been able to figure it out. I've tried using the manual. I've tried going online to different forums. YouTube. I've looked up everywhere I can, and I cannot figure out how to get this thing's built-in Wi-Fi to actually work. And I really wish it did, because it sounds like such a nice feature, but I haven't been able to get it to work yet. So I just kind of have to live without it right now. I'm just using the OLED monitor that's about 3 inches or whatever. I can't remember the exact size of it, but that's what I have right now from about 7 feet away. So obviously it's not very ideal. It would be much nicer to have it, if you're shooting yourself, just to be able to have that right there. But when I'm shooting films, it's not that big of a deal because I'm behind the camera most of the time anyways. So it really depends on your situation whether or not that's an important thing. And the fact that the max output of this thing is 1080p and 60 frames per second, I don't know. To me, it just feels a little underwhelming given the day and age that we're at, where you get cameras that are going up to like 720p or whatever it was. It gets ridiculous. But then you see only 60 frames per second. You're like, well, okay. I mean, yeah, sure, half speed slow motion's really nice still, but what about that 4 times slow motion? That 120 frames per second, like Peter McKinnon style footage. And then with the 1080p, we're kind of starting to evolve into that 4K realm. We haven't fully gotten there yet because the technology is still so fresh and there's still so much left that needs to be done before a full conversion to it, but we're already seeing so many 4K TVs and so many 4K movies that this almost feels like it's starting to fall behind a little bit by only shooting in 1080. Now, thankfully it does technically shoot in 4K, it just down-reses that footage to 1080, so it's a much nicer looking 1080 than most standard footage at that resolution, but it's still not actually 4K. And thankfully for right now, 1080p is still somewhat the standard, especially for places like YouTube. It's just, you don't really want to go much lower than that, because once you start going lower than 1080p, then it starts to seem like you're back in 2008. And real quick, just apologies if I sound a little weird today. I'm coming off of a cold right now, and I still have a pretty bad cough. Anyways, continuing on with the video. And just like one of my complaints with the Canon T5i, this thing has a 1.6 times crop sensor, which means any image you get is cropped down just a little bit more. And it really, I've kind of gotten used to it. I've gotten adjusted to it. But say, for example, I were to try to shoot at 18 millimeters on my lens right now, it would probably equate to somewhere more around a 24 millimeter. And it's just one of those things you got to compensate for and get used to. But there's no getting around it. It's just part of the camera's body, and you just got to deal with it. And ironically, with this camera, even though it's a cinema camera, it doesn't feel like there's much manual control to it, especially when it comes to the iris. It's only got a push auto iris button. There's no way that I've found to actually manually control the aperture on my lens. And that might be because it's intended for cinema lenses, which you can probably manually control it there. But as of right now, the only way I can control my aperture is by using my hand to either block or add in light, so that I can use the push auto iris button to get it about where I want it. So that's kind of an inconvenience to me. I really don't like having to do that. There's probably a workaround that I just don't know about yet, and that I have yet to look up. But as of right now, I'm not really a huge fan of it. And when I was talking about the specifications, I mentioned 15 buttons, at least programmable buttons. To me, that's a little bit of an overload, I will be completely honest, because I don't really use a lot of these buttons. About all I use is white balance, shutter speed, ISO, and push auto iris. For the most part, that's about all that I use. All the other buttons are just kind of extra noise. Sure, they're nice to have, but it just seems like a little overkill. I don't feel like they were all necessary, but I will cover more on that in the next section. And my last point on the negative side of things is the fact that the neck strap only works when you have the side grip attached, because that's the only other mounting point for it. Otherwise, you could only have one side of the strap mounted, and it's not going to do you much for using it and actually holding it. So now, on to the pros of this product. You get a very nice, sharp, clean image at 2430 and 60 FPS. Now, having those frame rates is essential because those are like the standard frame rates. You need 24 for all of your like film stuff or, just any sort of cinematic imagery. 30 FPS is good for like your broadcasting and stuff like this, like YouTube videos. And then 60 FPS is good, so you've got that option for slow motion. Always super handy to have. So I know I complained about only going up to 60 FPS before, but still having it is a super nice thing to include. And obviously this camera has a very nice sharp image, with a very nice Canon log color profile, which helps me to color grade and post. Like right now, take off the color grade. This is the base image that I'm working with. Granted, I have a red colored light in and a green colored light down here, as well as my white key light over here to kind of fill in some color, but then I can throw the color grade back on and I can swap it if I want to. Like here's this one, and then, you know, maybe I don't like that one. It's still cool, but not quite right. Throw on this one. You know, I can change it however I want. It's super easy. We'll go back to the original there. Now we're just back to the normal color grade. This color profile is just as flat as it can be so that you can have a lot more to work with in post when it comes to color, lighting, dynamic range, everything. It just makes it so much easier, makes everything look so much better. The low light sensitivity on this thing is incredible. Like, I had never shot a night scene before, but the first thing I did when I got this camera was I went out and I shot the street light. And that was my first time ever doing a night scene, and this thing handled it incredibly. Yes, there is still digital noise, but that is part of the point. It wasn't like an overwhelming amount, though, and that was the awesome part. It was just kind of a nice, you know, little detail to add to the grittiness of the film, but it didn't, like, overkill it. Whereas if I were to do that with my T5i, it would be flooded with digital noise, and it would just look horrible. And the rotatable OLED viewfinder is super, super awesome. I love having this thing. It is such a nice monitor for being able to see everything I need. I can turn on and off the display, get all the details I need on there, or no details at all, and I can just see what I'm shooting. And then having the viewfinder as well, super handy if I'm going handheld and I need that extra point of contact, or even in general if it's just really sunny out, I can put my eye up to that and see everything just fine. It's super, super nice to have. And this thing has lots of buttons. I know I complained about that before just because it seems kind of overwhelming. But once you kind of get past that factor, having all those buttons actually can be really handy. You can customize the layout to your liking. So you can change what all of the buttons actually do in order to fit your needs. And actually, if I were to go through and do all that, I probably would use the buttons a lot more. I just have yet to actually go and reprogram them. And I will also admit that the modular body is super nice, being able to pick and choose what parts I actually need for any given point in time. Right now, I'm just using the bare bones body. I don't have the top handle or the side grip on. But if I'm shooting handheld, that side handle goes on immediately. If I need some good reference audio in the body or something just better than the scratch audio, I'll throw on the top handle to get that microphone plus the preamps. Super nice to have. And then if I want to plug this microphone, my NTG4, directly into the camera, I will also throw my top handle because I've got my XLR ports right in there, and everything's good to go that way. So having these pieces and knowing that I can take them off whenever I don't need them and put them on whenever I do need them is super, super nice. And the dual pixel autofocus and the face detection are super, super handy. Canon has always been really popular with their autofocus, and I gotta say, I've not once had a problem with it. It always focuses really nice and easily. In fact, right now, if you see, I can move my hand up here. It'll focus on that very quickly. I can pull it back. It'll focus right back on me really quickly. If I move to the side, it'll focus on the wall really quickly. Just because I've got it set up on just center focus right now, I don't have it on face detection. If I were to have it on face detection, it would actually follow me really, really well. It's very impressive how well it works. So Canon, once again, nailed autofocus. The dual SD cards being a function of this camera is amazing to have. Having two 64GB SD cards in the slots for me is really nice when I'm doing large bulk recording sessions like I'm doing right now. I'm just recording several videos straight in a row. I like to throw on the relay recording, so as soon as one card fills up, it'll go to the next one and start filling that up. If I'm filling up, or if I'm shooting some video that's very important and that I can only really shoot one time, I'll throw on my backup recording so that way it records to both cards and I've got a backup file for that video on each individual card. So there's less of a chance of anything becoming corrupted, and if anything does, I have an option to go to. And last but not least, the built-in ND filters were probably one of the biggest selling points for me on this camera. Being able to throw an ND filter and not having to worry about what lens I'm using on whether or not I can actually throw that filter on. One of the best things ever. Just knowing that if I'm out in the field and if I forgot my ND filter, I can just throw that on really quick, whatever stop I need to, whether it be 2, 4, or 6. It really covers all of my needs for the most part. I adjust all my other exposure settings accordingly, and it works great. It's super nice, really works well at a pinch, or even if you just need a little extra ND if your normal filter isn't enough. So anyways, guys, that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope to help you. If this is something that you're looking at, if this $3,000 or $3,500 budget appeals to you and it works for you, honestly, it is a really good camera depending on what you're doing. So just know your needs, know what you need from a camera, and look from there. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see y'all next week when I post the next video. Peace out.
Okay, I've been working like 3 jobs. Probably why I never see ya. Probably why I never have time for the fake friends that won't be ya. Oh God, I've been running now. Up early when the sun is out. Not setting out my own soul, but those real ones, they coming out. Oh, look who's reaching out. Old friends wanna feature now. They don't work, so they need it free. Ooh.